Hey everybody, it's Tanner Mulvihill. Hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. You know, every week I stress on this show the importance of asking for the business, and I wouldn't be a very good podcast host if I didn't take the opportunity to do the same. If you would consider leaving me a 5-star review on whatever platform you are listening to this show on, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you know a top real estate agent you think should be on the show, please let me know that as well. I'd love the opportunity to hear from them and tell their story. In this episode, I sat down with 2014 Hampton Roads Realtor of the Year, Dayla Brooks with Own Real Estate. Dayla shared with me what it's like to throw out the first pitch at a baseball game in front of 12,000 of your closest friends and family, how her dog Buddy turned out to be a good luck charm and getting referrals, a reminder that today's efforts are planting the seeds for tomorrow's future, and finally a story that illustrates the importance of safety for agents. And now my interview with Dayla Brooks on the Virginia is for Realtors podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Virginia's for Realtors, now in our second season. I am pleased to be joined today by 2014 Hampton Roads Realtor of the Year, Dayla Brooks with Own Real Estate. Dayla, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing awesome, Tanner. How's your day going?
Yesterday was my birthday, so today's not like a recovery day, but it was definitely like I had a wonderful meal. The dessert was amazing. Just the whole thing was awesome. And it's kind of hard, like this great birthday. And now it's like, all right, back to the grind. I asked my wife if there's like day 2 of the birthday, like a birthday week. And she said, no, that's how I do it, is back to reality.
Well, that's what you asked for next year is I don't want a birthday. I want a birth week.
Perfect. Perfect. I think with Father's Day coming up here shortly, that is an advantage for me. But it's funny how Father's Day and my birthday get roped in together. Whereas when I was a kid, they were like Christmas and my birthday were almost half the year apart. So it worked out great, but it seems like I got the shorter end of the stick on this one. Well, let's get into this because, I mean, to win the Realtor of the Year in 2014, and just to give people an idea, the number of agents in the Hampton Roads Association, I mean, it's in the thousands and it's not in the small thousands either, right? So currently, I want to say there are over 10,000. And back when you won, still probably over, 6 or 7?
I think it was close to 8,000.
Okay.
But it was a true honor. And one of the perks for winning that was to throw out the first pitch at a Tigers game.
Okay.
Which sounds amazing until you have to do it. And you're like, oh my God, I can't be a blooper.
Don't throw this into the crowd. So how was the first pitch?
So I was so nervous that my husband and I both got up at 7 o'clock every morning and threw 10 balls. I mean,
Okay.
Did the whole thing. And I was still nervous. So the Tides organization let me have a coaching session with their pitching coach.
Oh, wow.
I have to tell you, that was the funnest day of my entire life. I took one of the young boys from my church, and it was really an amazing day.
That is awesome. So you decided to go with like a split cutter knuckleball? Is that what you threw out there?
I just wanted to get in the right area. When I threw a strike, I don't know if they were just being generous, but it was not a blooper.
Hey, you know what? To perform under pressure like that is awesome. It's easy to think that, oh, you'd put one down the middle if you were given that opportunity. But it's like, okay, now stand up in front of people and have one chance to do this. Pretty impressive.
There were 12,000 people at the game that night, and I just did not want to be a blooper. That was my whole goal, not to be a blooper.
You accomplished that, but you've accomplished so much more in your career. So I always like to get the backstory of people. And for you, were you someone who grew up in the area locally, or did you move here later, or what was your situation?
I count myself as a native because I was here before my first birthday. So I wasn't born in Norfolk, but my family moved here before my first birthday. So I count it as being here.
I would say that's for sure. I'll give you that one too. So growing up in the area, now, did you guys move around a lot in the area? So you were in different parts of the Hampton Roads area, or pretty much like the same spot for 20 years, or how'd that go?
So because my dad pastored a church in Norfolk that moved to Virginia Beach when I became a teenager, we lived as a family in Norfolk and Virginia Beach. And then when I went out on my own, I lived in Chesapeake and Virginia Beach. We've just been in the whole Hampton Roads area for quite some time now.
Very cool. One of the things that's interesting about this area is the bridge project that is underway that I hope just cures up all the tunnel traffic that people run into. But do you remember like your experiences with the tunnels? Has it always been like that?
It's always been like that. And as a kid, you're supposed to hold your breath all the way through the tunnel and see what you can make. So a lot of times when I have my grandson, Judah, who's 2, he'll be in the back seat in his car seat and we can't hold our breath. So we'll pretend we're holding hands.
Okay,
So
very nice.
if my husband's driving, I'll sit in the back seat and it's just an excuse to hold his hand, but he thinks you're supposed to hold hands instead of holding your breath.
Very cool. Okay, so you're living in this area. Did you leave and venture out and come back? Did you get into real estate right away? How'd that go for you?
I went away to college and then came back. So the only time I was gone was to go away for school. So this is home. And out of the kids in our family, I'm the only one who this has always been home base. I've always been here to take care of the parents and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
But at 19, I went to a real estate seminar and knew this is what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And-
Okay.
But I didn't do it.
Okay.
I got married and had a son, and I was a single parent for 16 years. And Tanner, I was chicken. I was not going to be commission only, being a single parent head of household, no benefits, no health care. I was afraid. The year that my son got married and moved out of the house, I started getting my real estate license right then.
Outstanding. So that was the catalyst. And then what was the year time frame that we're talking about when that happened?
So I got my license in 2006.
Okay.
So I missed the party that they had, 2, 4, 5, 6, prices went up. Missed all that. I gave 6 months notice because I had my same job for a lot of years. I gave 6 months notice to help them out. So in 2007, I totally cut ties and I'm full-time in real estate. And as in 2008 was the big crash.
For sure. And that's interesting. You're right that the way you put it, kind of late to the party there. Now, when you decided to make this jump, and you've had this in your heart since 19, like you were like, this is what I'm going to do. And just waiting for the time to do it. So what were some of the things when you look back on it now? Did you have any misconceptions about the real estate game that you learned later? You're like, oh my gosh, so this is what I thought. And this is what it actually turned out to be.
Nope. I had a sister that was a realtor, so I already had that aspect. My dad had 6 kids, and he felt like the church should not owe him more money because he chose to have more than 2.5 kids.
Okay.
So he always had real estate on the side to supplement our income. So even as a little kid, I remember cleaning up the yard, sweeping out tenants' houses, those type of things. So real estate was part of my upbringing just from being a little kid.
Yeah. And you saw the potential at that young age, like this is how you can grow your net wealth. This is how you can invest. You can have brick and mortar investment. And that's really impressive that you held on to that mindset, that goal and dream, and then you made it happen.
Well, what really happened is when I was a single parent, I bought my first house and it changed my financial picture because I became a landlord by accident. I wanted son to go to this private school and I wanted to live over here so he could walk to school, but I had a townhouse that I already owned. So my dad co-signed and we bought this house and I started renting out that townhouse. That townhouse was the best investment I have ever made, bar none.
Wow.
We bought it for $57,000 and we sold it for $170,000.
Wow. There you go. Tough to beat that for sure.
That's why I can sell real estate because I know what a difference it can make. I was a single mom and it changed my whole financial picture.
Yeah.
And that's what I help young kids do is to stop paying rent, pay your own mortgage, and change your direction.
Outstanding. Well, when we come back, I want to talk about that first year in business for you and some of the things and the lessons you learned that took you to where you're at now. We'll be right back with Dayla Brooks.
Are you a realtor in the Fredericksburg area looking for a photographer you can depend on? Look no further than Jason Buttram Photography. Winner of the Freelance Star's Best of the Berg Award 4 years in a row, Jason is the real estate photographer of choice for many of the area's top agents, including several who have been featured right here on this podcast. Whether you are looking for standard photography, drone shots, 3D tours, floor plans, or even twilight photos, Jason and his team will bring out the beauty and character of your listing and have it back to you the next day. Booking an appointment is easy. Simply visit jasonbuttram.com. That's spelled Jason Buttram, Buttram.com, or call or text him at 540-210-5518. Again, 540-210-5518. Make sure you tell him Tanner sent you. And now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. So, Dayla, here it is, 2006. You've gotten your real estate license. You're excited about this. And then the crash has happened when you're getting ready to walk in the door. Now, how did you start the process? So you've got your license now and you're like, all right, I got to make this work. How do you go about doing that?
So my first listing appointment ever was actually on my dad's birthday, and my husband got the lead for me because my husband's a contractor and he remodels bathrooms, those type of things. So it was someone fixing up their house, and he's like, well, here's my wife's card. So they were interviewing 3 other people,
Okay.
and I got the listing. So then I sent out postcards. But remember, in 2008, if 4 houses listed, only 1 sold.
Wow.
If you called me and said, can we go look at property? I'd say, come on down to the office. I'll have 10 or 12 to show you, because we had tons of vacant properties.
For sure. Yeah.
Today, you can't do that. There's no inventory. There's nothing available. But back then, oh, come on down to the office. I'll get a list together of vacant stuff that we can go see. I knew in 2008 that you had to be 4 times better than every other house out there, or you were not going to sell. So I got my staging certification to help get the houses sold. And that was a very big deal. It was very new back then. It wasn't something everybody was doing.
I mean, that is a great idea. And, I didn't know that stat, because now it's like, 98% of houses are going to sell. And to really just flip that on its head, every house had to be in tip-top shape and priced to sell, because it wasn't like you could demand more money. I remember 2008, 2009, closing costs were a given. Right? It wasn't like a maybe in most cases. It was like, what do you mean you didn't get closing costs? Like, always strange.
Even the banks gave closing costs.
Yeah.
It wasn't even negotiated. It was just there.
It was just part of how it was going to be. So you had this first listing and really liked that you got your staging certification. And do you recommend that? Because we're in a different market now, but do you recommend that for agents for when this does, hopefully never goes back to that, but eventually changes? Do you find that was something you used down the road?
I still use it now. I stage every house before I list it. So I don't think that ever goes away, because the buyer cannot imagine. They can only see what they see. Only 10% of people have any imagination to envision the house as it could be. If you want to sell, you have to reach that 100%, not 15%.
Perfect. Great idea. Okay. Now, when you walk in the door and you have your first listing, now, did you have a mentor when you started in the business? Was there somebody that you were leaning on? How'd that go?
No, I sure wish I had. I mentor people now, and I think it's a great thing. Or you can be on a team, this or that. But I didn't have either of those. I think I'm just naturally very confident, and I think, oh, I got this. Trial by error, if you will.
I'm wondering, what would be the success rate of 100 agents walking in the door at the same time you did? I mean, maybe 8%, 9% back then. It had to be low. So whatever the numbers are now, back then, totally different ballgame.
Well, a lot of people that had been in real estate for a long time got out during that time because it was so hard. I didn't know that. I didn't know that this was incredibly harder than it used to be for them, because I had missed that whole party. I didn't live through what they had lived through. So they had gotten fat and lazy, if you will, because everything was just happening and rolling in.
Yep.
And now it's hard again. But I had just come from a different job that I was working hard anyway, and now I'm working hard for myself. So it was not a big change to me.
You mentioned something offline that you were first in, last out, that really drove your work ethic, showed during that period. When you look back, what do you recommend for agents now in their first year? How would you have changed your approach if you were walking in the door now?
Well, I think the big thing is you have to reach out to people that already know you, like you, and trust you. Let them know that you're now in real estate. Because the people in my past career that knew me and trusted me, they looked me up when they found out I was in real estate, because they knew I would take the same level of detail, level of care. I would bring that to this new career too. What you did before, you've got a book of business, just bring that to real estate.
Interesting. We have a lot of new agents that listen to the podcast, and that's such a good point. And it can't be emphasized enough that you really need to be reaching out to those that knew you from these other fields. Now, your husband got you this opportunity for the listing, so it's nice that you had a supportive spouse too that's along for the ride on this. Were you relied on his database too? So you're like, hey, we're expanding this database. It's going to be as big as we can.
So it's interesting you bring up my husband, because we actually had a contest between my husband and my dog. to see who could bring in the most leads.
Okay.
The dog won.
So what kind of dog is this that is turning referrals? Because I think a lot of agents out there listening are going to be getting this type of dog coming up.
I've got to tell you, he's a very special dog. His name is Buddy. And anyway, long story short, the neighbors walking by would stop and give him treats. And he's just a really cute dog. And he started a lot of conversations. But the other thing was, I went to the vet and the vet was telling me the story about her friend who couldn't get her house sold. And I'm like, wait, what? Turns out the girl she was talking about grew up 2 doors down from me when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
So she's like, her name is Dayla and she's a twin. It's got to be the same person. So her house had been on the market for 17 months and hadn't sold. We got it. We staged it. We reduced the price $2,000 and we sold it in 3 weeks.
Holy cow. What a feather in your cap at that point.
Well, that's what happened. And the vet saw that. And so anybody that came in that talked real estate, she's like, I got your girl. So she became a walking billboard. And then one of her employees bought with me and we just went from there. So my husband didn't have a prayer.
I'm writing down, post your dog to ask for treats. We'll take pets or treats or real estate referrals and more than one trip to the vet's office and make sure that you mention some real estate. But to think about that, 17 months on the market. And we're not talking about like a $20 million home or like one that was just the ugliest thing ever. It's just like, no, the house was normal. And the things you did to it allowed it to sell. But what a crazy different market.
Well, here's the deal. When I sat down with her and I laid out my strategy, she's like, no one has ever given me a presentation like that. And I got back to the office and I thought, that makes no sense.
Right.
Because the person she had listed her house with before me was in my same real estate office 2 doors down. They just didn't do the work. They just didn't put in the time to go deep enough and find out, why is this house not selling?
Gotcha. I think eventually when the market does shift a little bit, it'll be interesting to see what the difference is going to be, what agents are really going to need to do different at that point. So is your presentation that you use now for a listing very similar to the one that you had back then?
Yes, 5 hours to prepare for a listing presentation. And I know that a lot of agents don't want to do that up front because they may not get it. But here's the deal, what it could do. And now you haven't done enough research and you've got the wrong price and you're going to try to sell it and you've just shot yourself in the foot.
Makes sense. So in the beginning, you didn't have the mentor. Now you're helping with a lot of mentoring, but did you hold open houses for every listing that you had? Were there rentals at the time? How are you getting your reps in?
It's called snail mail now, but back then email wasn't such a big thing. But I did a lot of postcard mailings.
Okay.
Sold those type of things. So the first house that I sold and I sent out that postcard, the buyer, the seller that called off of that was on the same street. They ended up sending me 8 different people that bought and sold with me.
Wow.
So 1 postcard, 8 deals. Here's how it really played out.
Okay.
That person was the executive director, USAA Insurance.
Okay.
That was in 2008. We sold with them. In 2010, USAA left our area. So everybody in her office had to sell and get transferred. They went to Tampa, they went to Arizona and Nevada, I think it was. But anyway, long story short, all of these people need a realtor to help them buy a house. So because we had done a fantastic job with her, she's like, I'm giving you to the nice people.
That's amazing, but it came from a postcard because you certainly didn't know like, oh, well, this is the executive of USAA. But that effort led to that result.
My clients, I become friends and I serve them at such a high level. That same client, we are actually scheduled to go see them later this year in Maine.
Wow, that is very cool. You did this legwork on the snail mail and really getting your name out that way. So you're marketing to the neighborhood. Did you focus on one particular neighborhood in the beginning, or were you more like, I got a listing here, we're going to hit these guys around there and then move on to the next one?
So I don't think farming, I know there's a lot of people who believe in that and swear by it, but it's never been something for me.
Okay.
Because I don't want a neighborhood per se. I want people that know me, like me, trust me. Because if you've ever worked with a client that does not trust you, I mean, they're questioning every single thing, every single step. They don't listen to you. It makes life so much harder.
Right.
So I don't care what you live in. I want somebody that is a good person of character that's going to take sound advice and make good decisions. So I've never farmed a geographic area like USAA. That person was the executive director. I started doing some follow-up at USAA and I would give out goodies and I've probably sold 10 or 12 different houses to USAA employees just from the connections of people within.
And that's a good point, though. So you almost established a bulkhead, and then you just made sure that the people around that person at work received goodies and just kept your name present.
Correct. A neighborhood isn't necessarily but birds of a feather flock together. So if I have a good quality person that I liked dealing with, I want their friend.
That's a really good point. I think of my own one that I had a similar where I would send pizza. I did a number of refinances and purchases for the guys over at HMX, and I would send out pizza every so often to the crew there. And then everybody had pizza, and they're like, oh, where'd the pizza come from? And then that's how I continued to stay in front of them. So that's a good point, though, for everybody out there. If you can find that one connector in the office, and especially if they have it, the office has, 30 people in it, 25 people in it, whatever the number is, that you could really expand that out. That's awesome and a great idea. What's a piece of advice you got early in your real estate career that you held on to and you give to others right now?
My first broker said you just have to list to last. And I just always took it, okay, I want listings instead of buyers. And I work with buyers quite a bit, but my favorite buyer is one that I've already sold their house and we have a deadline.
A little bit of an incentive to get it done, right? Got to be on the streets here, guys. Let's go. Sense of urgency never hurt anybody. If I had 100 new agents in front of you and we've told them list to last, do you have any other points you would really focus on? You'd say, hey, these are 3 things I want you guys to take away from what I did and what I recommend highly you do.
You can't advertise a buyer, but you can advertise a house. So that's why it was important to me. Listings are more difficult to get. Buyers will sign up with you more easily. And let's face it, a buyer is a more immediate paycheck a lot of times than a listing was, especially back in 2008.
The extended layaway plan potentially on those.
Yes. I mean, it was nothing for people to take listing for a year, not 90 days, not 30 days, a year, because the houses were sitting there.
Yeah. Well, and then you get into, of course, the whole short sales and everything else that became part of it. So, yeah, I'm sure there were agents that had kids that started as freshmen, and by the time they sold the house, they were juniors or seniors graduating. It was a process. So that's a big one is, okay, we're potentially working with the buyers as many as you can, because obviously in the beginning, you need to get the reps one way or another. So list to last, though, certainly is important. Where do you feel that when you observe new agents now, what are some of the things that you feel that they could potentially be doing better, recommendations you would make, things like that?
Well, I think we've had an abnormal last 2 years. 20 and 21 were just off the charts amazing. We all won awards. We all got a big pat on the back, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. And if you got your license during those years and you think this is normal, I'm very sad to be the bearer of bad tidings. What we are in 22 and 23 is much more normal and is much more to be expected.
Yep.
But everything comes in cycles. And so we may have this again in 8 years. Everything cycles around. So you have to be good at both buyers and sellers, because right now we're in a seller's market, but we could be in a buyer's market in 6 months. Who knows?
Very true. When you were doing this, at what point did you start feeling comfortable as a realtor? Was it like year 2? I feel like, okay, I got this not 100% figured out, but I definitely feel like I'm a little bit more confident in my real estate game.
So the average realtor doesn't even make it 48 months. If you can make it 2 years, you've really done something. But I was told early on that most people will not make it to the 4-year mark. Well, then I'm doing 4 years just to show I can.
4 years in one day, but did it.
Yeah, I did it. I broke the odds. But all that being said, Jen Bryant was an agent at my office when I very first started, and she took me aside. I'll never forget this because she had a baby in a car seat and she was selling real estate. And I was so impressed that she was doing all that, carrying this baby around in this car seat. And she said, listen, I know you're brand new. Do not get discouraged. I made this my first year, this my second year, and this my third year. By your third year, it's all going to come together and all the seeds you planted are going to come to fruition. You got this, girl. You got this. I'll never forget her taking her time and telling me all that. And you know what? It was exactly true.
That's outstanding.
Yep. By year 3, all the people that you've talked to along the way, now they're ready, or now they know somebody. So it doesn't happen overnight. But I would say that 3-year mark was when I started becoming more comfortable.
That's a really important point. And sometimes it gets lost in the instant gratification of anything in life these days, and that it takes time for these things to nurture. And I always remind myself that, and whether it's my coaching that I'm in or things like that, we're laying the seeds for where we're going to be in 3-year mark. But we have to keep working hard during that period and keep thinking about the layaway plan. And maybe that's the way I'm just going to put it from now on. I mean, my 3 years are a layaway plan right now, but it's going to be great.
Yeah.
My favorite question I get to ask about your early career: was there a bold move that you made? Your dog Buddy going to the vet and just occasionally his Buddy's got fleas this week and he's got glaucoma this week, and just going back for Buddy. But anyway, was there another bold move that you made to get business that you can remember?
I was at the office at 1 o'clock in the morning a lot of times because there was nobody else in the office, and I would get my mailers and my postcards and everything ready then because you can't call people then. But during the day, I was on the phone or I was stopping by people's offices. I was just not afraid to be there and to be present because I felt like a lot of people just weren't. If you had been an agent before and it had been so easy and now it's hard, they were just discouraged and they got out of the business completely. And then they came back in 2015 when it got easy again.
That's a great point. Outworking people never hurts. That's the way I look at it too. Well, when we come back, I want to talk about the transition from the early years, the progression and the story. So we'll be right back with Dayla Brooks.
Hey everybody, it's Tanner Mulvihill with Bayfield Home Loans. Well, 2023 is here, and if you haven't done so yet, it's time to take a good long look in the mirror and ask yourself an honest question. Is your loan officer helping you succeed? For example, are they bringing you new marketing ideas? Do they actively try to generate referrals from the clients you send to them? Or even better, are they sending you business? My philosophy is business should be a two-way street, and I do my best to make it that way. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please give me a call or shoot me a text to 540-850-6267. Let's get together for coffee. Once again, that number is 540-850-6267. Talk to you soon.
Welcome back, everyone. So Dayla, we're going to talk about where you're at in your business career now. And as we were talking offline, to win the 2014 Realtor of the Year with that many realtors in the area, it really shows that your peers respected you. And I think that is such a huge deal in this business. And people burn bridges all the time that they take the transaction very personally for both the buyer and seller. And I guess for me, I don't understand that business model. Don't burn the bridges. You're going to see these people again. That's like when I have a VA appraiser that's frustrating me, I just have to remember I'm probably going to get to sign that guy or gal the next 5 times I order a VA. So just hang off on the angry email. But you made a comment and I wanted to touch on it real quick. You said when you have a buyer or seller, if you take care of their money better than yours, they will refer you all day long. And that's such a true point. And I love that. You're looking out for people. Do you feel that's like one of the things that has really led to your success is just that mindset of like, I'm looking out for you, the money will follow?
Well, I feel like people know when you're genuine and when you have their best interest at heart. And I went on a listing appointment and I told him, you don't have enough equity to sell, but we're in a tight market. You could rent this out for 2 years and then you'd be in a position. And this is what it would look like for you. And I drew out the whole thing and it made sense to him. And he referred me to 3 other people because he was military and getting ready to leave. Anyway, long story short, he referred me to 3 other people. So I made the money back. But I told him, I know I'm talking myself out of a deal, but it doesn't make sense to you. It would not be the best for you. And I think people know, they know when you're genuine and honest and it just works.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when we're talking about you as an agent now, what are some of the systems and the tools? What does your schedule look like? We got a week coming up in July. What are you going to be doing Monday through Friday, basically?
Well, on Tuesdays, I always see baby Judah.
That's your grandson. So that is step 1.
That's right. And in this business, you can get eaten up. So you have to decide what your boundaries are before you set your schedule. You have to say, what are my priorities? What are my hard no's? And then I like to work. I've always liked to work. And so I'll take appointments late at night. I'll take appointments before they go to work in the morning, all that kind of stuff. But there's got to be some rest and recovery in there. So if you plan that first and you know what your boundaries are, then you can set appointments. The beauty of real estate is it's never the same day twice. So you're never going to have the exact same things happening. You're not going to get bored.
Right.
But your goal can be to have 2 listing appointments a week or 2 buyer appointments a week. That's what kept me going is driving. I have this buyer appointment set for this special time, but I don't have a buyer there yet. Where can I find a buyer to put in that appointment? Like a mental games like that with myself that I need to find a buyer to put in that spot.
I love it. 2 a week. You know what? If you get either 2 buyers or 2 listings appointments a week, you're going to have a pretty darn good career. So Make that your goal. I really like that. On a day-to-day basis, for different agents prefer one thing over another, what are you using on a regular basis for staying in front of people, real estate related? What are you using on a regular?
Well, I have a business coach, and so it's through the Buffini system of calls, notes, and pop-bys and staying in touch with people. And it comes pretty natural to do that. When you have a good relationship with your people, you want to stay in touch with them.
Yes, that's a good point. Now, do you try to have kind of a schedule for phone calls? If you find yourself have gone, I don't know, more than 3 or 4 months without talking to somebody, or you're like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm talking to these guys this week.
So my coach probably doesn't want me to tell you, but I'm really allergic to making phone calls.
Oh boy.
I hate making phone calls. In order for me to be willing to call, I have to have a really good reason to call, or I think bothering them. Okay. So I'll do little client events and I'll say, like, a month from today is my next client event. We're going to have, here's the latest scoop on the real estate market. Come have a free scoop of ice cream on me and I'll tell you about it. So
Okay. I love that one.
a little thing like that will say, it'll give me an excuse to call them. And I'm not bothering you. I'm offering you something free.
Yes.
So
I love that. That's a really good one, though. I love here's the scoop on the market. That's very good. I bet a lot of people are going to take that one because I think I have some ideas on that.
there you go.
Now, you mentioned the coaching. When did you get involved in coaching? At what point did you make that decision to start the coaching program?
My first year.
First year, year one. Wow.
Year one.
Were you in Buffini for that one?
Yes.
Okay. So Buffini, when everything went south, I know the Buffini group had to regroup as well as far as like the company. And so to really ride that wave back up, that's really cool. I'm sure one of the more experienced Buffini group members, I mean, there had to have been a ton of people that dropped out after the crash and then, to stay in since then.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Anything you want to get better at, you're going to have a coach. Anything you really want to succeed at, you're going to have a coach.
That's a good point. I think a lot of times we learn best from situations that we've run into, or it's the hard lessons that we learn the best on, unfortunately. When you look back at it in your career now, has there been any hard lessons that you really would advise agents, like either don't pass the buck on this, don't poo-poo it, like this is something you're going to need to take to heart? But do you have any hard lessons you learned on that front?
Well, I was very athletic. I was a tomboy growing up. And so I really always felt like I could take care of myself. And so I would go into vacant houses and show properties, and I did some really stupid things. So I think looking back, I would be more careful.
Agent safety. Okay.
Agent safety is the big thing. Went to a house, there were squatters there, and I'm showing property with a single mom and her 16-year-old daughter. So it's 3 of us girls going in a house, and there were squatters inside the house, and it just was not good.
Okay. On that front, let's talk about some of the lessons, because agents have asked me before to address that on the podcast. So it's not necessarily something that I would think about. I am a 6-foot former Marine. So in most cases, I would like to think I'll be all right. So how do you take safety precautions now? What's different?
So you never park your car where you can't get out. You
Okay.
always have a spot to get out. You never are backed in or blocked in, or always have an escape as soon as you get to your car. My phone tracks to my husband and my son where I am, because they got tired of me saying, hey, I'm going to this address. If you don't hear from me, start looking there.
Life 360's helped you guys. I got it.
Just little things like that. And I don't meet any party, whether it's a guy or a girl. I don't meet any party at a vacant house unless they've come in the office and people in my office have seen them.
Safety is so important, and that's great that you're practicing and great tips for people there. How about any practices that you still use today that you used in the beginning that were just like atomic habits that I formed in the beginning and I use them today?
Staying in touch with people and going back through and seeing, okay, who sold their house last, or just trying to keep in touch with people is huge. Whether it's just saying happy birthday or whether it's connecting on Facebook or whatever it is, it encourages me to talk with clients that I've been able to help over the years.
Yeah.
And then I think it encourages them to pass my name along.
That's a good point. I have this question that I've come up with, and it's kind of like, well, how do we stand out? So I always think, what do I bring to the table different as a loan officer? What do you feel is some of the things that you bring to the table different as an agent? Because you already mentioned one, the certification on the staging, which is outstanding. What are some of the other things that you really go, this is something that I pride myself on, that I am different than my peers?
So I think the staging is huge in that it helps any and every house sell. Doesn't matter what kind of house, 1-story, 2-story, anything, every house needs to be staged. I really care about our senior community, elders in our area. And right now, the national news is saying prices are falling. So right now, it's a real passion of mine that if it's a guy that's in his 70s or 80s and he's looking at the national news and it says houses are going down and that's where the bulk of his net worth is, he's panicking.
Yeah.
And I want word out to them, not here in Hampton Roads, it's not. Our prices are steady. Our prices are still going up. We are not having a decrease in prices. So I sit on the Virginia Beach Task Force on Aging, and I have a lot of connections. One of the last houses I sold in Great Neck, it was their mother passed away. And so the estate planning attorney had connected us. I do a good bit of business through estate planning attorneys, that elder community. So I just think we need to honor our seniors more. Other cultures do a much better job of it than we do, but they're wonderful houses to sell because they're usually paid off.
Yep, good point.
They're not going to be up down. So I started that way back in 2008, 9, and 10 when a lot of houses were upside down.
Smart.
Well, for the help.
I was just thinking of a joke too, that they're probably not running into solar panel issues either. We're not trying to get the solar panels released. Yeah.
I have sold 10 homes that had pink bathrooms.
Well, that's a testament to your staging ability. And look, if we get that sold, Pepto-Bismol, that's pretty impressive.
To neutralize it, and you can do that with all kinds of distractions and staging around it. So you just have to neutralize it.
I'll tell you what, that is a skill set that I do not have because I would walk in and see pink. And if you can make me not see pink, that's pretty impressive. All right. Well, when we come back, our last segment here, I want to talk a little bit about how you are staying in front of your clients. And then I always love to wrap it up with a great story. We'll be right back with Dayla Brooks.
Tanner Mulvihill, NMLS number 276814.
Well, welcome back, everyone. So, Dayla, let's talk about how we stay in front of past clients. Now, you have an event coming up that you have mentioned that I call the Ice Cream Social, but there is an official name for the event, but it is something that you do every July. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of it. When you came up with this idea, are you using the same ice cream place every time? Did you have 10 people there the first time and then it grew from there? How has it gone?
I can't take any credit for any of this. It was all my coach's idea. I just do what I'm told.
That's right.
So it's a frozen yogurt shop. It's not even really ice cream. July is National Ice Cream Month, so it's every July.
Okay.
But try and do it 1 year in Norfolk, 1 year in Virginia Beach, 1 year in Suffolk, 1 year in Portsmouth, and just move it around because I sell in all of those places. So the first year, I think we had 8 or 10 people come, and it's not always a really heavily attended. I think the most we've ever had is like 35 or 40. But it's not about who comes. It's about making me make my phone call.
That's a good point. Yep.
All it's about.
It's about making the phone calls. It's about inviting people. It's about staying in touch. But when you do hold the event, tell me, how does it run? I'm your past client. I show up. Hey, I'm here for the chocolate. How does this go?
So it's a frozen yogurt shop. You have gotten this postcard in the mail and you bring that, and that's your ticket you give to the cashier. At the end, the cashier gives me all these tickets and I pay for that many scoops. And then we just sit around, but I interact with each person individually. I don't get up and give a speech or anything like that.
Okay.
So basically, hey, what's going on in your world? Are you thinking about buying or selling, or who do you know that is? And I actually have had past clients bring their cousin to the event because they needed to buy a house. And we, from the ice cream event, went out and looked at house.
Oh my goodness. Like right there. Wow. Okay. Hey, immediate referrals never hurt anybody's feelings.
Because everybody knows I'm going to be there.
Now you're like, all right, I got to make sure that by 4 to 6 after the 2 to 4 is available and open. I'm just going to announce to the crowd, anybody want to go look at houses? Let's go.
There you have it.
A great idea. Have you had any other client events that you've done over the years that you either went away from or you do a different basis?
And once again, it's my coach's suggestion, but it has worked amazing and we do it every year. We've had upwards of 100 people to come, but it's a garden party, if you will. It's at a garden center and I give out free garden gloves and it's in April. So it's always right before
selling season.
Everybody has been cooped up all year long. And so people come and bring their dogs and their babies. I get a hug from all my clients and they make a masterpiece. So they tell you how to make different things. And so we call it a masterpiece, but it's a container garden and somebody there wins it. It's just a lot of fun. And in reality, it helps my people keep their curb appeal up. So when they do go to sell their house in 5 years, makes my job easy.
Good point. Now, try to envision, where are we holding this at? This isn't like Home Depot or Lowe's or anything. Where do you hold it?
So I like local companies. So it's locally owned and been serving our community. I have it at Four Seasons Garden Center. And I'm their realtor. I have sold houses for people that work there. And like the vet, once you get in and you make that network. So this coming year will be my 10th year in a row doing
Wow.
there.
Okay. That is very cool. And that's a unique idea that I have not heard before. And just another great way to meet and greet people. So you're just walking around saying hello to everybody as they're coming in and, hey, this is where you go.
We have
Okay.
the table set up and we do it around Earth Day. We're celebrating Earth Day. We're celebrating spring and we give away free garden gloves. So you only have to get your hands dirty if you want to. And we do little things for the kids. They can paint rocks or make a butterfly, or it's just a cool little event.
Absolutely. Great way to stay in front of people. Now, this is my favorite part of the show is I get to ask my favorite question. You are a top producing agent who has been doing it now for quite a while. So I always love to hear, do you have a funny, scary, weird, just anything out of the blue real estate story that when you are telling stories about the real estate game, what's your go-to story going to be?
Oh my goodness. Probably the most scared. It was me and the single mom and her 16-year-old daughter, and we're showing a house, and we come in the house and I'm saying, and this is this and this is that. And all of a sudden we hear this bam, the whole house shakes. I turned to them and I said, stay here. And I go into the next room. There were squatters in the house and they had gone up the attic and they were trying to hold the door up and they lost their grip and it fell down. So now they know they're busted. So here comes 5 people down the stairs and out the front door. None of them spoke English. It was just the most weird.
Oh, for sure. That's crazy town.
She turned to me and said, this is not the house for me.
I would think not. She handled it well, though, and that is definitely a scary story and not something you want to run into when you're showing houses. Do you have a funny story for me, too?
Well, I think my dog being able to give me more leads than my husband is just right up there with the funniest thing I have.
I'll tell you what, that dog, yes. Does he have preferred bone that you have given as a referral fee, as in the business? You're like, this one is elk.
He got a new bed.
Posturepedic mattress. Well, as a top producing real estate agent referral source, I would say that's very cool. Well, Dayla, it has been a pleasure having you on the show today. You made a lot of great points, and I really enjoyed hearing about your career and just gave me a lot to think about. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you, Tanner. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Virginia is for Realtors podcast. If you're a realtor looking for a loan officer you can count on to follow up with the leads you send, keep you updated on the transaction every step of the way, and get you to the closing table on time, give me a call. I'd love the opportunity to sit down with you for coffee to learn more about your business and how we can make it even better. Until next time, this is Tanner Mobihill on the Virginia is for Realtors podcast.